Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the Performance Administration and Finance Committee meeting on February 12th. I'll call us to order now, and we'll go ahead and get started. To start the meeting, Taylor Siwi, our Deputy Clerk, will call the roll.
Committee Chair Sinella.
Here.
Committee Member Bhat Patel.
Here.
Committee Member Edson. Committee Member Contreras.
Present.
This completes the roll. Committee Member Edson absent.
Thank you, Taylor. And could you give us our safety brief at this time, please?
In case of an emergency, I will dial 911. In case of an evacuation, please take the stairs. Do not use the elevators. Once cleared of the building, do not re-enter unless cleared to do so by emergency personnel. There are fire extinguishers and first aid kits on each floor of the building. There is a portable defibrillator on the first floor and staff on hand trained on CPR procedures if needed. This concludes my safety brief.
Thank you, Taylor. Do we have any public comments at this time, Taylor?
No, we do not.
Okay, thank you. Okay, our first item on the agenda today is the election of the PAF Committee Vice Chair for calendar year 2026. Suhail Rodriguez, Director of Administration, will present this item. Suhail, you have our attention.
Good morning, committee members. So as we do each year, this is time to elect the vice chair for this PAF committee for calendar year 2026. According to Board Policy 3, the first meeting of the year, which is today, we will elect the PAF vice chair, and that vice chair that is elected today will also serve on the executive committee. So at this time, I will turn to you, committee members, to either make recommendations or nominations for PAF vice chair.
Okay, thank you, Suhail. Taylor, do we have any public speakers on this item?
No, we do not.
Okay, great. Should we just nominate Jules since she can't say no?
Yeah,
I'd be happy with any of the three of you.
I'm comfortable with Jewel serving in that capacity, and would love to hear Councilmember Contreras.
Yeah, I'm assuming that we're able to nominate someone who's not here, and vote on it, right? Or do they have to? There's not a rule against it, okay? Until there is, I guess we can just move forward. So I'm okay. I'm okay
She may
with that.
object though when she gets here.
That's true. We're putting that in the motion that she is not able to object to this nomination. But do you
So
want to
moved.
I'll second.
Okay, we have a motion by Contreras and a second by Priya Bhat Patel. And we'll go ahead and, Taylor, and do a roll call vote, please.
Okay. Committee Chair Sinella.
Yes.
Committee Member Bhat Patel.
Yes.
Committee Member Contreras.
Aye.
On the motion of Committee Member Contreras, seconded by Committee Member Bhat Patel to elect Committee Member Edson as the PAF Vice Chair, motion passes.
Okay, we'll surprise her when she gets here. Super. Moving on to item number 2. The next item is on the agenda is the review of the 2026 proposed PAF Committee work plan. Ewan Park Lynch, Chief Financial Officer, will present this item. Ewan, it's all yours.
Good morning, board members. For our first meeting for the PAF, we are going to be presenting our work plan for the next 2 meetings that will take place in 2026. The first one is our first meeting, which is today, has already taken place, but the next 2 meetings are scheduled for May 21st and December 17th. For the May 21st meeting, we'll be presenting the proposed operating and capital budget updates for fiscal year 2027, and also we'll be presenting the proposed fee schedule that will be effective in the next fiscal year. For our December meeting, we'll be presenting the unaudited results for the financial statements for June 30, 2026. We'll also be presenting the status of our pension liability, and also the update on the proposed capital improvement program that will go from FY28 to 2032. And then finally, we'll be presenting the updates to the internal audit program charters. If the committee wishes to add any items to the future meetings, we can do that as well. But this is our current proposed plan. That concludes my presentation.
Thank
And then,
you, Yun.
I also wanted to give an update to a couple of questions that were presented by committee chair on the, not a committee chair, but a committee member on the update on the service changes, 6-month service changes. That is scheduled to be presented to the board March meeting. And the second item is related to the first study update, and that will be presented to both the executive committee and the board in April.
Perfect, thank you. Taylor, do we have any public comments on this?
No, we do not.
Okay, great. Do any of my colleagues have any questions or comments? Yes.
Yes, thank you so much, Ian. Just for clarification, so you're talking about what I had requested in the past regarding a fair study or looking, right, just that component of our budget overall. So that won't be coming to PAF, but it will go to the executive committee and the board in April.
Correct.
Okay. And when do we anticipate that that report would be available for the board members to start consuming it? Because I'm assuming that if I just only have 7 days to do that, it could be a little bit difficult. So is there an anticipated finish date where we would be able to receive that information ahead of time to thoroughly review that?
So I'll allow Mary.
I would say it's, the regional fair study as a whole is occurring right now. As soon as we have any information available to that, we'll send it out to the board. We won't wait till 7 days before.
Okay.
Because we want people to be able to review that pretty thoroughly. It really depends on when we,
This is a
Get that
Sandag timeline, right?
Sandag is leading the charge
Yeah.
on the regional fair study. We have had some internal meetings already about
Okay.
coaster zoning and a few other things that would apply to the regional fair structure, but Sandag is managing the regional fair piece.
Yeah, so we presented to the PAF committee the overview of the initial round of public outreach that we received. Now we've taken that feedback and it's informing particular scenarios that we're going to go out and talk to the public with. Sandag was able to complete the model for MTS a little bit before they completed it for NCTD, so we're just about a couple weeks behind. But we are looking at what the model is telling us in terms of the fare revenue that will be increased by various changes, also what we can expect to be in a change in ridership for each of the scenarios. Then we'll go back to the public, have that conversation about particular scenarios that could be implemented. Then we'll come to the executive committee, give them an overview of what we've heard from the public and the scenarios, and then it'll ultimately be the board's decision to recommend either package. Right now it's looking like it's two, either one of the two packages for the Sandag Transportation Committee for approval. Your second comment about the kind of like 6-month service change review, we're working on that right now. We'll hit the 6-month mark in March. So right now it's looking like we'll bring it to the March board for review, but we can certainly make sure that it's available to the board ahead of posting so that you have the opportunity to review and ask any questions.
Okay, and I just have a follow-up question because, we're really talking about having a balanced budget and having enough funding to be able to, one, continue the service that we have now, and always we're looking at, expansion. We also have, the Youth Opportunity Pass. I think that's only has funding up to this year. So there's a lot of different pieces. So I'm wondering if, I still think that there's a piece of this that fits under the PAF committee to look in a little bit deeper, because one of the things I would like to see is that with these different scenarios, that we also have a projection of the dollars coming in, right? So we could see our budget. And is that something that we anticipate we'll see? Because I know that this is like a large project. I didn't necessarily hear that component in the description of it, but is that something that we could recommend here, or is it already going to come to the board with that type of information? Because I think being able to project financially what those different scenarios look like is a critical component of the stability of this agency, and for our board to be able to make the best comment, best direction to staff or digest the information more comprehensively. So, yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. So as a region, we're targeting either July or August to implement the fare change. So our board and MTS's board has to review it before it gets sent to Sandag's Transportation Committee for ultimate adoption. That's kind of why we've targeted the April Executive Committee and the April board meeting. However, in those discussions, we will certainly talk about the estimated revenues that we can expect to bring in from whatever fare increase the board ultimately decides to recommend. So the board will have that picture. The board will also hear what we've heard from the public about one-way fare increases, monthly fare increases, particular passes, kind of the whole picture of what we've talked to the public about, so that the board has that when they're making their decision. And we'll also talk about potential changes in ridership. We know, like anything, if you increase a price on something, you might see a decrease in adoption of that. We do expect that to be short-term, but the board will definitely have that information to make their decision.
Okay, so it's still not, none of this is going to come back to PAF?
For the timing, it won't, but we
Okay.
can certainly make the PAF committee aware ahead of time.
Okay. And the other component of this is something that I brought up as a discussion point. I think it was at our last board meeting, or maybe the one prior, I can't remember. But the fact that we don't have, and this is something I think that would be driven by Sandag, if I remember correctly from our conversation, but we don't have a low-income fare subsidy. And you know, whenever we're talking about increasing fares, we have seen in the data and in the surveying that we've done that if you're making 15,000 or less, I mean, that's a substantial percentage increase, right, to someone's cost of living. And so where does that piece fit in to all this?
Yeah, so at the last PAF committee, we talked about some of the challenges with adopting a low-income fare, mainly how we would manage the eligibility, what that would look like. So right now, that is not part of either of the packages. However, we are intending to talk to the public about different types of fare changes. So in one scenario, and this is, you know, very preliminary, so the board will actually receive the official package once we discuss it internally and determine what's the best for the agency in our view. There is an option for one-way fares to increase, while monthly passes don't face as steep of an increase. So we have, we want to make sure that we're looking at different types of packages. There is fare capping that's still part of the regional fare, so the $250 as it is now for the Sprinter and Breeze service, MTS bus and trolley, that is still going to be subject to fare capping. So if somebody can't shoulder that big ticket monthly pass price at the beginning of the month, they still have the opportunity to work up to that and get that monthly pass and receive those benefits. So we are looking at various types of ways that aren't necessarily low-income pass that we can try to manage the cost.
Sure, no, and I appreciate that, but I think, you know, we're running up against a situation where folks that are low income are struggling for everyday necessities, transportation being a huge social determinant of health. So I want to know what we can do here to flag it for Sandag. And, you know, one of the things that I recommended was, is it possible, and I don't know if that gets housed in this committee or it gets housed at the board, but I really would want to have a discussion about potentially writing a letter from NCTD to Sandag regarding looking at a low-income fare subsidy or structure, and understanding that it is a huge obstacle for folks to get verified. We've seen that even with the Youth Opportunity Pass, but potentially there's a way that we can start having that conversation as a region, because I think it's absolutely critical at this point. And we have our growing population is seniors, and that's also happens to be the fastest growing population of folks experiencing homelessness. So I think we really have to be intentional about how we're going to build affordability into this conversation. And, whatever it is that we need to do to flag it for Sandag, as this is really important to our region here in NCTD, to our service territory, I think that we should pursue that. And again, I don't know if that's housed here. It doesn't look like, there might be some room on this agenda, maybe on May 21st, to have that discussion. But I would want to hear, from you all where that could happen, and if it's going to happen here or at the actual board meeting.
We have a meeting next week with Sandag to discuss a myriad of things, but future funding is one of the topics that is going to be in that meeting. It'll be Sandag, MTS, and NCTD. And I am 100% certain that these conversations will make their way into that future funding conversation. I'm not totally sure where MTS's board is at on some of these things. The last that I had heard was that they were somewhat reluctant to look at a fare increase for a lot of different reasons. But I think would be open to having discussions about some of these other items if a fare increase were to occur. So we'll know a little more after next Thursday when we have that meeting with them.
Yeah, I mean, definitely if it looks like we're going to move towards a fair increase, I think it's an absolute conversation that needs to happen. And as much as I want to believe that these things will be on the docket for a conversation, I don't have access to an agenda of that type of conversation. And so I just want to make sure from my position and my authority that I'm able to, and that we are all on the board able to push this as this is an emergency conversation that needs to happen, if there is a movement forward to increasing fares. So anyways, thank you. That's all I have. Yeah.
Is that something that we should add to the May agenda for PAF, or would that fall under the fee schedule discussion that we're going to have?
Yeah, I think in terms of keeping the timeline that we have right now for the implementation of the fare change, we'll likely probably have this conversation at the April board meeting or the April executive committee meeting. If the board has a consensus that they would like to talk about any particular changes to the fare, or it's at the board's discretion to make the recommendation to Sandag's Transportation Committee. That's the opportunity for the board to tell them, ultimately they are the deciders and they do adopt the fare change, but our board does provide the recommendation. We think it should be this scenario. We think it should have X number of passes, this percentage of increase, and things like that. So I think it would be, if the board does not reach a consensus, or if Sandag's Transportation Committee does not adopt our recommendation, then we can certainly add it at any point with the approval of the chair to the PAF work plan for May.
Thanks, Mary. Thank you. Any other comments or discussion?
Thanks for the presentation. Just kind of going off of what committee member Contreras was talking about, just questions around, and Missy, please let me know if I'm going too off base. You can stop me if I am. But I just wanted to ask, do we happen to have data, and I'm sure, I have a feeling we do, data around how many folks this would affect, and then from there, just being able to, if we are going to have this type of discussion, I feel like having a recommendation coming from the experts would be beneficial, because we can obviously make policy calls, but I think it would be really helpful to know, okay, what would that, if we were to even consider something like that, what would that look like operationalized would be helpful. Just because otherwise we're just going to be going back and forth saying, should we not? But it would be really beneficial for us to see if there were a possibility, here's an example of what this could potentially look like, because otherwise we're just going to be kicking the can further down the road for the discussion to happen.
Yeah,
So,
there's a formula that exists that when we look at any
Great.
type of a fare structure change or some type of addition to a fare structure, there's a baseline that we may lose up to X percentage of ridership, but we would gain X percentage of revenue. Those are important because it sort of aligns us with what we think is an acceptable number, even though ridership loss is not acceptable at all, if we can try to solve that problem. But especially when you deal with like Youth Opportunity Pass or an adjusted income pass, those numbers really matter, especially in the sense of a increase to a fare. If you increase a fare and then implement a way for a group to be able to maybe stabilize a little bit, does it equalize the numbers without really impacting what we're trying to do with the fare increase? So we do have those numbers. Some are internal, some are driven by Sandag, but we can definitely bring those to the
yeah, great. And I was going to say it would be helpful to hear, how are we making up for if we did implement something, and it sounds like we already are coming up with ways to do that, but also looking at external funding as to how to bridge that gap, because obviously we don't want to keep shifting things here internally. We'd love to be able to utilize that for other maintenance and operations costs after we can advocate for that too. So, but yeah, cool. All right, that sounds great. Thank you.
Thank you. Sorry, apologies for late arrival. I cannot control traffic on I-5. I appreciate the comments by my colleagues and hearing the comment about seniors being the largest low-income group and also the largest homelessness group. Can you remind me of what our senior pass is?
Yeah, so we offer senior day passes, senior one-way and round-trip fares, and senior monthly passes. The one-way and the round trip are typically 50% of the average cost of the one-way fare or the round trip. Our monthly passes and day passes, however, do have a steeper decrease. So it's about, I believe, 66% of the total pass for our monthly passes. Our monthly coaster pass, I'll get you the official numbers, but I think it's around $58 for the senior. And then our Sprinter Breeze pass is $19.
And what's the age for seniors?
65.
Okay, thanks.
Great discussion. Anything else? Okay, thank you. And thank you all. There's no vote on this item, so we'll move on to the next.
Committee Chair Sinella,
Yes.
just let the record show that committee member Edson arrived at 11:13.
Great. Yeah, Vice Chair.
Thank you.
Yeah. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Okay, we'll move on to item, our last item, which is item 3 on the agenda, is the consideration of adoption of the 2026 proposed internal audit plan. Karen Tucholsky will present this item. Karen, you have our attention.
My bad. Sorry. Just as a brief refresher, NCTD's internal audit program is a critical component of our overall compliance program. The IAP helps ensure compliance with our policies and procedures and also helps ensure that we are operating efficiently and effectively within our key business functions. In accordance with the IAP charter that we had reviewed at the meeting back in December, this committee is responsible for approving the internal audit work plan on an annual basis. For calendar year 2026, NCTD is proposing internal audits in 2 areas, the first of which is a contract compliance review for the Intercon Security Services Agreement. As you may recall, in July of 2024, Intercon commenced providing services on an on-call basis. Their deployments are primarily focused on transit centers and onboard assignments. I know we all agree that security of our passengers and employees is a tremendously important priority for NCTD, and we absolutely want to, continue utilizing the services of Intercon in this very important area. As a new provider in a major operational function, we are proposing this audit to ensure that Intercon is in compliance with requirements regarding personnel, training, performance, and reporting. The second proposed internal audit relates to human resources benefits. So with all of our NCTD employees now directly employed by us, super great, super exciting, we have a total headcount of well over 800 employees. So what we want to do is take the opportunity to do this employee benefit audit encompassing both our human resources and our payroll departments. The audit would focus on compliance with our policies and procedures regarding employee contributions for elected benefits to ensure that they're being correctly and timely entered by human resources and then accordingly processed via payroll. So this includes items such as accurate deductions based on the type and the level of the elected benefit, as well as timely updates for any changes, additions, deletions, or such that the employee may make to their respective elections. It also covers an examination of the benefit invoice payments to the respective vendors for both accuracy and timeliness. So in conclusion, we have identified the foregoing areas as priorities for the internal audits, and we recommend that the committee adopt the proposed calendar year 2026 internal audit work plan. And that concludes my presentation.
Great, thank you, Karen. Appreciate that. Taylor, do we have any public speakers on this item?
No, we do not.
Okay, great. Any questions or comments from my colleagues?
Thank you so much. Okay, so this looks great. I mean, I think it's, always important when it comes to security to do an audit. I'm curious on the HR benefits audit. We have 800 and how many, did you say, employees? 850? Okay. And that's an increase. Prior to insourcing, we were at how many?
370 something,
Okay.
maybe close to 400.
Yeah, so, I mean, it's a lot more folks that are under our budget right now. So I'm curious if we're gonna be auditing, or if this has happened, and I just don't recall the document, but the projected budget that we had set aside for insourcing versus the actual cost of insourcing. Have we,
Yeah,
do we have a document that shows that?
We don't yet, but
Okay.
we had committed, and I think it was a little over a year ago, maybe a little longer. We had committed to come back to the board and kind of show where we were in conjunction to what we essentially projected. To kind of give you an idea, in the email that I had sent to the board previously, we had projected that we would probably be somewhere in the neighborhood of 58 to 60 million, just based on this being a contract year for employees in MV. Some of the increases we've seen over the years with the contractor, we consistently averaged more than what we budgeted for in operations over the past 5 years. I think the only year we were under budget was, 2021. The benefits that are related to that, when we did the budget for what we thought folks would come over for, when we gave the presentation board, we talked about the part that wasn't cost neutral to us would essentially be entry into the state retirement plan. Benefits are under CalPERS, and we have our HR team reviewing whether or not we can get another quote for that. But I can tell you that just based on the current temperature of how people feel about benefits in the current setting, we're having a real difficult time getting someone to give us a quote for benefits. We were hit with a pretty significant increase last year from CalPERS, and we were told we will probably see another one again this year. So, all those things factor in. I think it's difficult anytime you have an organization that's kind of in the mid-range like we are, that's searching for a good benefits plan, because they're, if you have 10,000 employees, it's one thing. If you have 500 employees, it's a whole different kind of risk pool. But yeah, we definitely bring that back.
Yeah, just because I think we're fully done with our insourcing, or is there?
No, we were fully done in July.
Right. So I think it's a really good time to bring this information, seeing as it was like promised to the board. So the sooner the better, just because I am really worried about the sustainability of this agency in the face of a lot of fiscal challenges here domestically and abroad. So I think it's really important, sooner rather than later, for the board or for PAF, the committee, or both, to be able to really dive into those numbers, just to ensure that we are on a sustainable path with our insourcing. So,
Yeah, I mean, everything's insourced, so
yeah.
From here on out, it's just management of the organization at large. I would say, we've been pretty open and honest about the fact that we had a $185 million budget a couple of years ago. We did about 174 this past year. We're going to continue to look at those numbers. Bus operations is probably not necessarily the key source of our concern right now. I'm more concerned about Transnet funding related to coaster operations. We have a legislative, we have someone from our legislature who is trying to invoke legislation that would require us to run some runs further north that really don't make a lot of sense for this agency, and would take away potentially from other rail services we have in the region. My focus would probably primarily be on seeing how we could increase ridership on Sprinter through continual management of that, and then sort of figure out what we want the bus network to look like if we had a robust Sprinter line. But yeah, I'm happy to bring it
Okay,
back.
awesome. Yeah, I look forward to seeing that and having that discussion. I just think the sooner the better, because we are every day in a tougher situation. So thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you, Committee Member Contreras. Any other comments or questions at this time?
Yes, thank you. Thanks for the presentation, and looking forward to seeing it. I might have a different viewpoint than Committee Member Contreras. I do think that you all are clearly trying to make, and I know you weren't saying that, just like I think it's more making sure that we can be, I think obviously we need to, as policymakers, continue to see that information. I know that our staff, which I know you also feel, is doing everything we can to make sure that the agency is sustainable. And I think the hard parts, I would say that I think that would be really helpful for us to see are all of the external factors that are going on. And I think that's the part that would be really helpful for us to see is how can we make sure that as an agency, we're continuing to adapt? I think all of our agencies are going to see that, right? Like with regards to funding, whether it's federal, state, maybe even countywide in terms of what that looks like with the other planning agencies. So I think that's where being able to understand how we can continue to adapt and be nimble in that particular sense is going to be important. I have full faith in the staff to make sure that we can continue to be, financially stable. I think that we've been able to see that in the past decade, that we've been able to weather the storm with all these different things. And then, of course, in the last couple of years, especially with our change in leadership, I do think that, yes, we're having some different things that we're doing, but at the same time, I think we'll continue to see an upward trend. It's just a matter of how do we weather the storm with all the things happening, with all the different variables in the equation. So, yeah.
Yeah, I appreciate that. And I would tell you, Lori and I just got finished with some of our team members negotiating the 5th of the 6 contracts we need to negotiate. The past 6 months has been a little bit of a whirlwind with our ops team, bringing folks on and kind of figuring out what that means for us. And then really doing 5 contracts, which is unheard of. I've never done 5 contracts in a year. We have 13 bargaining unit contracts, in case anybody ever kind of cares about that. One of the things that we talked about, and you and I had a little bit of a 6-month review a couple weeks ago, the one thing we've started doing is at the 6-month mark, we're reviewing where we're under budget, why we're under budget, where we're over budget, why we're over budget, making course corrections. One of the things we're also looking at is where is money tied up that could be going to operations? And one thing that we did as an agency, which I don't think was an incorrect assumption, but when we got our SB 125 money, we tied a lot of that money up in capital projects because I think there was an assumption that the operating dollars were going to last for an extended period of time. That money was really designated for securing operations for a number of years until we got to a place where we could find an additional funding source. And so we've really had to relook at why certain projects are even happening in the first place. Do they even make sense to do them now? Should we redirect those capital dollars into Sandag's Bank for operating expense that we can draw down when we reach the cap on Transnet, which we have not yet. This year in particular, Sandag advised us that pretty late in the game that they felt like there was going to be a dip in Transnet dollars. So there's about $5 million that we should receive at the end of, I think later this month, it'll go to the Sandag board. Once it's approved, we'll draw it down as needed, but we're not going to necessarily add that back into the budget other than a revenue generator. But I think that's the big piece. When we look at the money itself, like at the time, it was a good idea for us to local match capital projects with the SB 125 money. Now what we really need it for is additional security and police enforcement. We need it to have as a safeguard for operations if we have years where Transnet funding is low. And so not really since we've insourced, but over the past couple of years, I've just been kind of keeping notes on almost like a COA of sorts, like a comprehensive operational analysis. And the goal for Lori and I, once we got past the December mark, when we got done with those contracts, was to kind of meet up with all the board members and kind of give them a rundown of where we are. Really in each department, where we're at on capital projects, where we're at on funding, where we're at on bus operations, where we're at on Sprinter, where we're at on Coaster. There's just a lot of information that I think we either need to shift or course correct, or figure out, what we're going to do with some of the money that was designated for operational funding. So it's all there, and we're more than happy to get out and talk to everybody about that.
Thank you. And thank you for the presentation. I would like to kind of piggyback on what my colleague, our chair of the agency, was alluding to and pointing out. I really appreciate staff's diligence and transparency. I'm always excited that I can reach out and ask questions if I have any, and that the information's always really out there. I share your concerns. I think we all do as board members, because we want the best for this agency. We want it to succeed. We want to be able to serve our ridership public. And it's difficult because there are hoops that are on fire sometimes. But staff has been pretty nimble about trying to address these things and really reactive when they need to be. I think the board is somber but ready to support things and to do whatever we can for the betterment of the agency, and for the betterment of public transportation in the region, right? I shared some news with Sean over the weekend. I received email from Sandag that since the approval at the January 23rd board meeting, Sandag successfully refinanced $376.31 million in Transnet sales tax revenue bonds, resulting in approximately $61.6 million in savings over the next 22 years, or nearly $45 million in today's dollars. So I'm hoping that that may benefit this agency by providing a little more operations dollars, coaster-related especially, but anywhere within our system. So,
Yeah, Coaster is an interesting one because it's funded from two pots essentially. And one of the main contributors to the expansion of Coaster service was Transnet 8.1, which does have sunset. And not only does it have a sunset, in the event that Sandag shows a negative return in a year that would significantly impact them, they can claw back some of the, and clawback's a strong word, they can essentially tell us they don't have the funding for certain expansions and we'll have to manage that accordingly. I think in the grand scheme of things, as we think of Coaster specifically, that is a little bit of concern for us. How do we manage what Transnet 8.1 looks like post 2030? We got a little time to discuss that. That's another one of those items that's on the agenda for next week that we want to talk about. We've got, I got to give Sandag a little credit because they're doing a lot of internal moving too. They're getting away from like big picture pie in the sky stuff, and they're really getting back to how can we manage road services, how can we manage transit services? And I really appreciate that because now we're really talking about projects that are critical to the region versus things that may be a little boutique, and getting right back down to how we can salvage operational dollars.
Sean, can you clarify, when I think of CalPERS, I think of, retirement benefits, pensions. Earlier you were talking about, did you say that the agency gets like their health benefits through CalPERS too?
Yeah,
I haven't heard that
yeah,
before.
so our health insurance is through CalPERS also.
Okay.
I admittedly, I get a little frustrated when I see the message from their CEO about how great they're doing on their returns, and she got a $600,000 bonus, but my insurance went up 14%. And now I have to send that letter out to the workforce, right? And like last year, on the administrative side, I mean, I can only speak from the benefits that I picked. My benefits went up $400 a month. But when I was already paying, I think, $295 or something like that. So like, they have a lot of options. I like their options, but for us, like, do we really need to shift off of that and move to something else? Because benefits are becoming a huge portion of the organization. Interestingly enough, I don't think that I think the benefits may have more of an impact on the organization than the state retirement will long-term, because that's been pretty consistent. And I'm a little worried about that, a couple things that I see other states doing. When I was in Washington, we actually put together a plan to ask the state at some point in time if it was okay for employees to choose whether or not they wanted to be on the state retirement plan. And they're like, you can't do that because much like Social Security, whoever is contributing now is paying for people that are on retirement now. So if we draw that money back, it's going to be a real problem. I'm not sure that the insurance pool is the same thing. The problem with the insurance pool is that there's not a lot of organizations that want to give out insurance benefits. They're either going to be super high deductible, really of no benefit to the employee unless they have some type of a serious medical condition. The CalPERS benefit plans are pretty robust. I mean, people can get good health care, and I think we need to keep looking at that. But yeah, they provide a lot of different things, but state retirement and health benefits in our case.
Thanks, I didn't know that. So do the employees have options for healthcare? Like, can they choose Kaiser or Sharp or?
Yeah, they do. Actually, we have 7 or 8 different ones,
At
right?
least 8.
Yeah, at least 8.
Okay, so
And,
there's options.
and they range from fairly low, almost kind of a high deductible plan to fairly expensive. Kaiser, I think, kind of fits right in the middle of that plan somewhere, so it's.
Yeah, and I certainly understand the increases in insurance recently, and it's not unique to NCTD.
Yeah.
My wife's, a principal in San Marcos Unified School District, and they have the same challenges, and of course, the cities as well that we all represent, so hopefully there'll be some improvements in that area.
Yeah.
Any other comments?
Yeah, I just want to say thank you so much. And I think, because we are grappling again with so many different factors that really, unfortunately, accumulate, I don't even know how to be able to address this to the larger board, right? But being able to just have our pulse on it and continue to see maybe where some unanticipated costs are or whatever the case might be, just so that we could be well ahead of a point in time where we may be struggling, right? If we could stave that off more, I think it's just going to be important. And also because we have talked about, at different board meetings, how we really haven't looked at our routes enough, right? And so I'm thinking just of all these different components and the fact that we don't have any additional operational dollars, but hopefully we might. And that's such a large part of our budget that we would need to get some more funding to be able to, just get to our customers and get our customers to where they need to go. So I really appreciate the dynamic discussion by this committee, and I look forward to seeing a lot of different reports and trying to digest that myself, and for us to continue to have really thorough discussions about the financial future of our agency. Yeah, thank you.
I was going to mention in my February email, but we're getting super close to having statistics available live on the website. All the way to, you can look at it essentially from a broad perspective of here's the ridership and service hours and things that for the whole system, Coaster, Sprinter, and Flex Breeze. Then you can dive into that. You can go by route. You can look into sort of revenue generated off of those routes. I think our goal has always been, and we've been talking about it internally, we really need to get back to basics. Our goal should have always been core services. And I think because we were in a space where we got a lot of money from the state during COVID, we got a lot of money from the feds during COVID, we thought, wow, we really got to get into shoring up some of these capital projects. And that long-term is not a good solution for us. We need to figure out what our core is, make sure the core is covered first, and then work on these other projects. And I give our finance team a lot of credit. I mean, we were able to essentially create a budget where we negotiated 4 or 5 of our contracts in this fiscal year without amending the budget. And we're still on course right now to be somewhere, year to date, I think we're somewhere around $4 million under budget. And so, for us, what we're really finding is the departments are getting a lot better about where does that money need to be? Where does it not need to be? How can we redirect that money to do certain things? How can we make sure that it's focused on Breeze and add a little service here and there? How can we manage coaster schedules effectively with some of our partners? And, this budget cycle, I think, is going to be tough for some of our departments because we've already started that conversation a couple weeks ago. And, you know, we hit that process early so the departments really know, like, you need to write down what exactly it is you're trying to accomplish, and then we'll figure out whether or not it should be done. I mean, when we bring the CIP list to the group, and this is one thing I really appreciate the staff for, Tracy's not here today, but Tracy's group's done a good job of this, is we've always come with all these projects, and what we find throughout the course of the year is we're only able to do 20 of them based on available funds or based on available resources, and we've really dialed that down to things that we just need to get done. And so things are moving a lot quicker and a lot faster in that realm, and you know, it's good to see that. So shout out to the team on that.
Well, thanks again, Karen. Appreciate it. I'll make a motion to approve item 3, and is there a second?
Second.
Okay. Item number 3 has been moved by Chair Sinella and Committee Member Bhat Patel. Taylor, can we get a roll call vote, please?
Committee Chair Sinella,
Yes.
Vice Chair Edson,
Yes?
Committee Member Bhat Patel,
Aye.
Committee Member Contreras.
Aye.
On the motion of Committee Chair Sinella, seconded by Committee Member Bhat Patel to adopt proposed calendar year 2026 internal audit plan, motion passes.
Great, thank you. On to board member reports and comments. Anything else to add?
I will be serving on Sandag for my city of Vista, and so I look forward to being there on Friday. I thought I was going to have maybe some additional time, but they're like, no, you can come join us on Friday, so I'll be there.
All day
Just
Sunday.
let you know, I'll be riding the little choo-choo down there, so.
The color of the day is red.
Right, anything else? Okay. Our next scheduled meetings, we have the Marketing Service Planning and Business Development Committee meeting on Thursday, March 19th at 11 a.m. And we have our regular board meeting scheduled for Thursday, March 19th as well at 2 p.m.